Well, hello and welcome back to Topley Dale and my workshop for the latest update on progress on my layout build. So hopefully you'll see before me right now that actually things have moved on a little bit from the last update, and I've got lots of things to show you today. So we've got some new buildings going in around the station scene, new features as well, new track layout going together, and what I'm going to do during this update, as well as updating you on all the new elements that I'm working on, I'm also going to take you to a little bit more detail about how I build things like the multi-storey flats, as well as a little bit of an insight to these GB rail freight depots and how you can use them for your own layout at home. First things first though, let's take a little look round at the new features on Topley Dale.
Hi, I'm Ellis Clark. At Ellis Clark Trains, we specialise in locomotives and rolling stock from N gauge all the way up to the larger scales. We're well known for our pre-owned range, where we offer some of the very best items that have been hand-selected by our team. Our latest pre-owned stock is uploaded daily, which can be found on the new arrivals page on our website. We also sell our own range of models, such as our popular Black 5s and Presslow wagons, as well as our ever-increasing range of 00 gauge products. Located in Skipton, our showroom is open 6 days a week, so come on in for a friendly brew and a chat. For more information, visit ellisclarktrains.com.
So the best place to start, I thought, was in this corner of the layout, which is where a lot of the focus of my attention has been on over the last couple of months. So for starters, the actual junction all the way through here now is all fully complete in terms of the track layout. That gives me the main lines running off into the storage yard on the top level, just off to my right here, as well as a split here to take two further tracks off, which go down a gradient which is going all the way down and round and underneath the layout to a new scene as well. Now, all that track work's all fully working, it's all fully tested. The first section of the gradients are all working as well. So I've got about 45 foot of the gradient now currently built, with about another 15 to 20 foot to go to actually connect it down to the next level underneath. Now, a big part of this as well, I've started moving forward with, is actually shaping how the scenery is going to go around the railway as it comes through this area as well. And one of the things I'm particularly keen for is to build a really urban theme around this end of the layout. It's actually, to be fair, from here, it's really quite a nice view across the station, station area that will become a station one day. Now, the big features obviously are the new multi-storey flats here. These are new ones we developed from the kits that PJM Models created for Pete Waterman's Making Tracks Fallout. We've created a low relief modular kit, which you can buy in three different types of kits. So you can buy a base kit, which gives you a bottom floor, a top floor, and one middle floor. You can buy an additional single floor on its own to go in between, or you can buy a triple pack of the middle floors to expand it even higher. So the fully painted set that's here, that's basically an example of each of the three kits put together to show what you get if you bought one of each. So that's given me a 7-storey building there. All the nice features built in all the way up, all fully laser cut, so it comes with laser cut components for the structure, for the brick overlays, for the windows, the glazing. Everything is laser cut in these kits and goes together really nicely. Now, next to that, you can see I've got another set of multi-storey flats coming together. That one's going to be taller. I mean, so far I've got, I think it's about 8 layers there, but my aim is for that to be a 12-storey block of flats when it's all finished. And what I'll do shortly is I'll take you through the process of actually building one of the stories for these flats as well, so you can see how they all go together, how easy it is to build one of these kits. Next up in this area, I've done a lot more work on the actual 4-road diesel depot kit. So it's now painted, it's got all the windows fitted. I'm just doing the final touches now to the brickwork before I start adding the weathering to that as well. And I'm starting to formulate a plan for how I'm going to do the interior to this depot. I've got a plan for it all to be fully illuminated and fully detailed inside as well. That'll take me a little bit more time because a lot of work to go into that. But the scene's now starting to take shape around here. I think it's now coming to a point where actually I need to get all the point motors in around this area, get everything fully working underneath. Then I can start actually ballasting through this section as well. Plus there's also, there's this to build as well. So this is a whole new, brand new bridge, which is going to create the scenic break between the scenic layout and the off-scene area here as well. So I've got all that to build as well. So that'll make a really nice backdrop. We'll have a main road running through this as well. Nice little scenes either side to take a little bit more depth into the layout. Right, that's this corner. Let's go and have a look at the new GB Rail Freight Depot. So move back round to the new expansion to the depot scene, and basically the inspiration for this, as you can imagine, was the creation of our new GB Rail Freight depot kit with PGM models, which is based on the real structure at Peterborough, which is operated by GB Rail Freight. Now, as soon as we built this building kit and had the first sample just roughly assembled, I was like, I've got to find a way to get this into the layout somehow. And I tried different ways of trying to fit it into the current baseboard width. But actually, it just didn't quite fit. It didn't look quite right. You know, I could have had it straight in line with the main line at the front of the layout, but actually, by swinging it across at an angle, it gave a real nice dynamic to this depot area, with the whole thing swinging around from one section to the other. And one of the things I was really keen to do as well is actually to make this look like a really brand new depot, just like the one at Peterborough. And it's quite interesting when you look around there, actually, if you see the photographs from the GB Rail Freight Open Day earlier this year, you know, all the track's really clean, the ballast is clean as well, everything's really well maintained, which is kind of in difference to how we generally perceive how a depot scene would look. You know, if you go to a longer standing depot, then actually it does have more bits and pieces around compared to the new GB Rail Freight one. The other interesting thing as well is actually this building operated by GB Rail Freight is actually it's a wagon repair facility, not a loco facility. But in this case, I want to use it as a loco facility, and you know, it fits in quite nicely with the overall scene here. So the kit is entirely laser cut again. It uses a combination of MDF panels for the main structure, but we've also got an entire skeleton inside as well. So you actually have the full structure of the building inside, and that all goes together to make the actual model come together. Now, one of the trickier parts of this kit, it's not that tricky, but it just takes a little bit of time and care, is applying the rib overlays onto the building. Now, the blue one that's painted here, this was our first test build, just to make sure everything fitted together. We used the wrong type of glue, I will admit, to actually hold the ribs onto the main panels there. So we used a super glue there, which did cause a little bit of blobbing around the panels when I put the paint on top. But actually, when you do it properly and use the correct materials, then actually the result looks much better. So this one here has been done just to show you how it actually all comes together properly. And I've done this using spray adhesive. So a can of spray adhesive, you spray it onto the back of the rib overlays and then very carefully position them on top of the panels, and they fit really neatly and give you a nice finish on top of that as well. So this one now is almost ready to go to the next stage, will be for priming, to move on to the painting side of things as well. Because even though it looks like I've pretty much done here, I've had another idea. So the idea of these depot kits as well was that they are modular. So if you have space only for a single loco length depot kit, like this one that's 335mm long, then you can just build this, you can build it with two ends on it. It comes with both the extractors and all the roller shutter doors as well to make that fully complete. Or if you've got a bigger layout, then you can use this as a modular kit. So to make it modular, we've done two kits. So there's the option A building, which comes with both the ends, all the extractors, everything in the kit. And then there's an option B kit, which comes without the extractors and without the end panels, which you can then use to expand the length of the depot. And it's quite simple to do that. So if you were to buy one of each, you'd find along the edge of each kit, there is a score line in the roof panels. And all you do is you score that off, cut that section off each of the buildings you want to join together. And then you can actually bring the two buildings together and extend the length with a seamless joint in between. Now, there isn't a seamless joint here because I haven't scored the end pieces off, but you could then expand this in length as much as you wanted to fit your own layout plan. In case you're interested and you wanted to model the full length of the GB Rail Freight depot, you would need 3 sections of these to actually make the full length of the structure, and that would give you one option A kit you'd need and a pair of option Bs, and that would extend the depot to the maximum length that it is at Peterborough. So my plan at the moment is that I will use this one that I'm currently building. I'm going to build another one as well because I'm not happy with the finish on this. And then I will also extend the scenery just off the board here so that I can fit 2 of these depot buildings together back to back and give a much longer depot scene. It should make this really quite an impactful scene here. Now, connected with that as well, I'm also going to make some amendments to how the river scene works going through the bridges underneath the railway. So originally I was going to have that really straight and wide going through the bridge, but I think now I'm actually going to move that at an angle. It gives me a bit more space to work with here in order to expand this depot scene as well. Now, obviously, to do all this has required building another baseboard, which I've built into place now on the layout, and it's all fixed to there. All the track's been relayed as well, so it's got all brand new track laid into here. Got a new large radius curved point in there to make the split to go into the 2 depot tracks. Plus I've also now put the fuel road in as well. So that's been quite a big modification to the original track plan that was here for the Topley Dale goods yard. But one of the things I've tried to do, and I intend to maintain with this, is actually I want to keep this new depot area pretty clean in terms of its presentation. So this newly ballasted area will look like a new depot, and then the track in front where the Class 47 is there, that's going to maintain its original, much dirtier ballast look. So you kind of get that sense of the old railway and the new railway as well. Now, obviously there's a bare bit of baseboard here, and there's also a small issue of a gap just here. There will be a filler to fill that gap in, and I do have a plan for this space here as well, which I'm working on at the moment, and I'll hopefully show that to you in a future update. Now though, I need to move on and show you the next big thing that I've been working on, which is much longer and goes down a gradient. So you might remember in the previous update that at the time I just started building all the timber work around here for the gradient. I've now got the track laid, I've got trains running on it as well, so I can run trains up and down the first 45 feet of the gradient for each direction, and it's worked pretty well so far. So there's lots of adjustments required still in the final section after it gets to the end of this board. I've got a little bit that's just a little bit too steep as it curves round, going round to the front of the layout, but the principle of the 1 in 75 down this side of the layout has worked pretty well so far. It's been nice to test it with a different collection of trains as well, to get that sense of whether actually what I'd planned was actually going to become a reality and was going to work before I got too far into it as well. And yes, I'm pleased with it so far. I mean, it is a long route down to the bottom of the layout. You've got 20 foot coming down this side of the layout, another 10 foot across that end, another 20 foot down that side, another 10 foot across the far end, and then it will reach round to the new lower level below this level here. And that will give access both to the new scenic section, which I haven't started building yet, and to a new low-level storage yard, which will be underneath here as well. So that'll give me a lot more space for on-track storage for trains. I think the hardest part about building this gradient actually is that it's trying to keep a consistent gradient all the way down, and particularly going round curves as well. That's really quite tricky. So that is the bit that is causing me the headache at the moment, and whereas I've got to put the adjustments in is actually to make sure that particularly this curve here has come out really nicely, but the next curve, when it goes down to the far end of the baseboard and in front of me here, that's the one where currently I've got some adjustments to make to get it exactly right, so I get the right performance from all the trains coming up and down the gradient. At the moment though, I mean, this full rake of HAAs, they roll up and down quite happily with the Class 60 on the front. This full length container train, which is, I think it's 12 flats down there, that will run up and down with some different locos on it. I've tested the PTA wagons, the PFA wagons, all kinds of different trains. HSTs have been going up and down it. So I know that actually the principle of it definitely does work. Just refinements to get it to be perfect. Right. Now I've brought you up to speed with all the amendments and what's been going off in the layout, I'd like to take you across to the workbench. I'll start showing you how I build one of these laser cut modular flats. So I'll come across to the workbench now to show you how I assemble one of the stories for the flats. Now, I'm not going to show you how I build the whole thing here because you'd be here for hours and I don't think anyone really wants to listen to me for that long. But what I want to show you is the basic process of assembling the inner structure, a quick guide to how I actually paint them as well, and then adding some of the finishing touches to explain how it all fits together to create the finished result. And then hopefully next time, when you come back to see a staff projects update, all 12 stories of the second block of flats will be fully complete. So I start with the inner structure first, which is basically these two sections of parts here. So you've got a floor, which comes on one section, and then you've got all the internal and external walls for the double skin wall for the structure as well. Now these are quite easy to remove from their MDF carrying frets. So just carefully work your way along the edges, and all these parts will just pop out of their frets like this. And then I'm going to repeat that same process now with all these parts. Now, one difference is where you've got the outer walls here, which have got the very fine strip along the bottom below the doors and windows, don't try and snap those out because you will damage them. So what we do, turn them over to the rear face, and then using a craft knife, just carefully run your blade through all the attaching points to detach them from the sprue. If you don't do this, then from experience I can tell you, you will damage the bottom edges of these particular ones. So now when I press on that, it should just now nicely come out of this fret here. You can see working my way along the other side, I can just pop the tabs off all the way along to release the part. Now I can just feel here there's just one, oh there we go, we've got it all. So as you can see now, by cutting the tabs first, I'll be able to keep all that bottom edge intact. So repeat that with the shorter side pieces as well. Pop those out. And now the rest of the parts are on here. They haven't got that fine bottom edge, so I can just pop all those out of the sheet. So the next and very important stage is to go around and clean up all the edges of all these parts as well. Now you do just get little pips where you take them off the wooden frets. So it's just worth spending a couple of minutes going around each part, cleaning up all those tabs, so that when you come to assemble the model, it goes together really neatly as it should. So there we go, that's all the parts are now sanded up and ready to go. Now a couple of things I'll just mention here. So a bit like when I was taking these very fine ones with the fine bottom edges out of the fret, when you're actually sanding them, just be very careful because there is just a little bit of flex in them and it is easy to actually damage them. I've done it a couple of times. But on the positive side of that, MDF is really quite forgiving. So I unfortunately actually damaged this part whilst I was sanding it, so I actually managed to bend it a little bit too much. But by running a bit of super glue into the point where I caused the bend and then sanding it up afterwards, very quickly within like a few seconds, it's actually all repaired and good to go again. So that part's all now just as good as it was when it was first cut. So now ready to start actually assembling this structure now. Now one of the things I do with this kit when I'm actually building it is I start by dry assembling everything. So no glues involved to start with whatsoever. So I start with the middle, which these are now handed. So the short prongs, they go into the rear wall, and the long prongs, they go into the front wall because they're going to go through a double thickness of MDF. So line that up, drop that through the middle there. I then add in the sides, the inner sides, so the ones without the little line across the bottom, and drop one of those into each side. Now, also important to note with these as well is actually in terms of which way around the laser cutter cuts these. So what I'm looking for is there's a burnt side and a not so burnt side. because when a laser cutter cuts it puts an ever slight chamfer into the hole as well. So this one I'm putting at that side because it's the right way around to do that. So that's the basic structure there. Now I'm happy with those 3 pieces as they are now. So what I do now is I use the super glue and I just run a bead of super glue down the inside of this part. And then using a scrap piece of wood from the fret, I use that now to push the super glue into the joint to make sure it all seals in place. Now I'm going to move on and do each of the other parts now. Now you can do like I've just done there, or you could, for example, just put drops of super glue in between each of the teeth before you set it into position. The result is the same either way around. And just as I put that floor in, I just caught one of the edges of one of the tabs here, and it caused a bit of the MDF to come out the side. Just use a craft knife, just chop that little bit off, and it won't make any difference to the structure whatsoever. So that's already a pretty secure fit. You know, we can hold that, we can tip it upside down. It's all pretty well held in place. So we don't need a huge amount of glue now to actually hold that structure down to the floor of the flats. What we are going to do is going to use super glue again. I'll go around the corners and just tack it in place so it really can't move. We don't want it to be moving later. So I just put spots of super glue around each corner. Then using a stick of wood, spread it along each joint to make sure they're all joined together neatly. So now I've got this one fully complete, it's all dry as well. I'm just going to set it to a side because that's got to go through a whole load more processes now. So I'm going to try and explain those processes. So first, each story of the flats I prime with a white primer, and then I put about 3 or 4 coats of white primer on to build all the white base colour. And that gets you to this stage where you've got a completely white section of the building. And the reason I use the white is it means that you get all the white walls inside, as well as getting the white panels on the outside where you need them as well. This one's got a couple more coats to go, but it's getting close to being done. Then after I've done that, they move on to a next stage, which they all get masked up like this. So I cover up all the interior, and then all the edges then get painted. So all the corners of the brickwork here, and all the edges around here and all these sections, they all get painted with the terracotta colour that I use, which is a Rust-Oleum terracotta colour, which is then sprayed on to give that basic brick colour to them. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove all this masking tape from this one, and you can see how all that looks. The trick here is to make sure you get everything neatly covered, so that when you take the masking tape off, it reveals all the white inside. So now I've got the brick colour down the edges, which is important, and what I'll do to finish this off is actually give this edge round here and the balcony section a coat of grey. But I'll brush paint that on so it saves time to mask it all again. Just to finish that off and give it like that concrete finished in those little details. Now, again, like I say, having painted this all white does make sense in a moment. So the next stage we'll do is to actually start adding the brick cover layers. So again, I've pre-painted these. They've had a coat of grey primer on them. Then I've had a coat of the Rust-Oleum terracotta colour on them. And what these do is they go in on the outside of the structure. There's little slots for them to slot into. Now they are a little bit fiddly, because you're kind of joining things together in multiple directions at the same time. But what you're looking to do is you're looking to insert this top corner tab here, then pull in this side to go into those 2 slots in the bottom panel. Just takes a little bit of care to get it to go into those. Once they're painted, then actually it's just worth sanding the front edge of the middle tab. It just takes that little bit of paint off, which means that it will actually fit into the slots as well, because they are a very tight fit once they're painted. Good news is, though, that once they're in, they really are in. And now you can see why I painted this all white first. So all these panels on the real flats at Watford, they're all white. So doing it this way and painting it all first and then putting these brick cover layers in actually gives us the correct finish to the building. And now what we're going to do is going to put this front section in as well. Now the reason for not putting the glue is I still need the flexibility to pull those corner pieces out. So I need that little bit of flex to get these in. Otherwise they just won't go together. And now this is the probably the trickiest part in a way, which is actually to align the teeth of the brick corners at the same time as getting this into the slots on the bottom. Now again, I'm just going to very lightly sand the paint back on these. Just gives a little bit of clearance. Makes my life a little bit easier. So you can see now, I'm pulling this corner right back now. Just whilst I slot that corner in. And then you can interlock the bottom teeth together now down here. And then work your way along this front panel. And at this end, we've got to repeat the same process. So I appreciate it's quite difficult to see at the moment because I need a lot of fingers in the way at the same time. Right, so that's all now in place. So now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use the super glue. I'm going to put little dots down the top edges. They'll just run down behind the panels and it will secure them into place. So I'm going to start on this side. Hold it in place for a few seconds whilst the glue goes off. Now we can start working our way along the front panel here as well. So I do a couple of sections at a time. Just let the glue run down each of the middle panels. A couple of seconds, just let the glue run in. Then press the panel into place. We're almost there. That's all those brick layers are now in place all the way around this structure for this layer. Just make sure everything's set in place exactly as it should be. Which means that's now ready to move on to the next stage, which is, like I say, going to be painting all the edges in grey, which I do by brush. And then we can move on to the final couple of stages in this, which are to put the windows in and to do the balconies as well. So I'll show you a little bit of how that goes together and a finished one to explain those pieces. So we're now getting down to the finishing touches for these flats. Obviously there's lots more of these to do to build the whole 12 stories, but what you need to do next then is start putting the window frames in. Now the windows, they come in a three-part process. So you've got an inner window frame, an outer window frame, and the glazing that goes in between those two. Now the outer window frames are much finer and the inner window frames are slightly thicker. They all come on these thin plywood sheets, and what I do, I paint them all first. So these are being painted with a grey primer, then they're being painted with a satin black. Then you can cut each window frame out, and then, like I say, it's a three-stage process. So you've got an inner window frame like this, which is a thicker frame. That goes in from the inside and sits just inside the window frame like that. Then your glazing goes in, and then finally the outer window frame goes in from the outside over the top of the glazing. So it creates a sandwich that holds the glazing panel in place. And the glazing panels are all laser cut, they're all part of the kit as well, so they just slot into place really nice and easy. You can pop them out of the sheets without any tools and then they fit nicely in there. Now all of that I do with PVA glue because it dries nice and clear, and I've got little dropper bottles you can use to just put that around the edge of the window frame, seat each of those parts in place, and then you get to a finished flat section like this, where you've then got the outer window frame, the glazing, and the inner window frame. And then after that, there's just one more job left to do on these, which is to do the railings around the balconies. Now, those they come again in the kit. They're really fine, very fine plywood that's been laser cut again. Again, like the window frames, I spray paint them with primer first, with a grey primer, then spray paint them with a satin black, then cut each set out of its fret, and then attach them onto the building to finish them off. A little bit fiddly, but they make a really big difference to the final look of the building. Then at that stage, you're at a point where actually, if you bought a 3-storey flat kit, you'd then have your base, you'd have a middle floor, and then in the case of this one that's in my hand here, would be a top floor. Now, if I just get the other floor that I was building earlier, you'll get an idea of how all the different processes go together as well. So the bottom one obviously is got its first coats of white paint on it. This second floor is bare wood as it comes out, basically making the inner structure of the building. You've then got one with the white paint on it and the brick finishing panels on it. And then at the top, you've got a fully finished story as well. Now, you can make these flats go to any height you want. So your basic kit, your 3-storey kit, which we do, you get enough parts in it to make all those 3 stories there. So you get the ground floor, a middle floor, and a top floor. You can then put as many middle floors as you want in between the ground floor and the top floor to make your flat any height you want. We do those in both triple packs and single packs, all go together in exactly the same way, and as you can see from the buildings on the layout, they make a really big impact as well as a backdrop. So as you can see, I've got a lot more to do on these flats to actually finish off the 12-storey block, and they're going to keep you busy for a little while. If you started building these or you plan to build these, I hope this gives a little bit of an insight as well into how they all go together. Next though, I've got some more projects on the layout. So as you can see, there's plenty to keep me busy here on the rebuild of Topley Dale. For starters, I'm going to keep very busy finishing off all those multi-storey flats. There's plenty of other projects going off as well. I've got the start of the bridge across the storage yard entrance. I've got continuing the gradient underneath as well, finishing all that off. Plus obviously there's a small gap of the gap here between the baseboards that need filling in, and many other projects besides. I hope you enjoyed this latest update. We're back with another one very soon once I've done a little bit more work on the layout. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy running a few trains, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.